Hello everyone, my name is Steve Hilborn and this is week 2 of menu and facility design. Couple things about last week. Last week we covered a few things as it was the very first. So we went through the course outline and the syllabus, and we really spoke about how this course is set up, the different assignments, and the major assignment as well. We also went through briefly, or I at least posted a PowerPoint about what is a menu and the purpose of it, and some of the factors that must be addressed when creating menus. You also would have seen the major project video, I hope, read through that, and started wrapping your brain around what kind of concept really interests you or fascinates you. This week, we're going to be doing a couple things. So this week, we're going to talk about the food service industry and some of the history of the restaurants and the menu. We will also have our first in-class assignment. Now, today I'm going to lecture a little bit through some of the PowerPoint just to really break down some of the thoughts that I have put on the slides and give you a little bit more of an explanation, but probably not the whole thing. I'm going to try to keep most videos to about 15 minutes, 20 minutes max, and then give you some reading to do on your own. I'll also put another video introducing the first in-class assignment. Now this in-class assignment is worth 7.5%. It'll be handed out today, Monday, and it'll be due on Friday before 5 p.m. And it'll give you instructions in that video on how to complete it and also where to submit it. So one thing I want to talk about is dynamic pricing. Now, typically I would ask all of you, have you ever heard of this? But as this is a pre-recorded video, what it is, dynamic pricing, is the fluctuation in prices based on popularity. So, ski tickets. If you're trying to buy a ski ticket for Blue Mountain, it'll be more expensive on around Christmas, during the weekends, and just the more popular dates. And the same thing goes with accommodations. Staying at a place on a Saturday night was more expensive than a Monday night, and concert tickets and everything. So dynamic pricing really has never been applied to food and beverage before. And a really good example is, if you went into a McDonald's during dinner time, you would have to pay $2 more for your combo meal than you would if you went in at 2 p.m. It doesn't sit well with me. It's kind of an ethical thing. We know what our food cost is. We know what our labor cost is. And we know that this is the amount of money we make when we serve this combo meal. So now, just because it's busier, I'm going to charge you more. It has its flaws, and it also has its benefits. Blue Mountain has currently adopted this, and it's curious to see what the impact will be. So Blue Mountain has said that their costs are flattening in the last couple of years, which is good, and that they're using a lot of buying groups. So what a buying group is, and there's a link here for you if you'd like to check out Food Buy, which is one of them. A buying group is basically a group or an amalgamation of a bunch of different companies that you must use as a food and beverage restaurateur. And it could be where you buy your wine from, your alcohol. It could be where you get your meats and seafoods and dry goods and all of those things. And even where you hire your cleaning crews from, or where you perhaps use security or your POS technology. Now, the good thing is that all these companies will give you a really great discount if you stay within this buying group. So they've partnered up. Blue Mountain has reduced their cost by 7%, and that is a lot. So usually we're only taking 4, 5, 6, 7% home. They've almost doubled their take-home income by using this buying group. So take a look at this and give you a little bit more information. This right here is just an infographic on the Canada's restaurant industry as it is right now. Or as it was last year. Right now, it would probably look quite differently. But as of last year, there was about 97,000 restaurants. It's $85 billion in annual sales, which is very, very big. 4% of the country's GDP. Now, why that number makes or is important? 4% of the country's GDP is more than all of the forestry and mining activity in Canada. So restaurants make more money or produce more product than all mining and forestry in Canada. And think about how big and how much of a mining mecca Canada is. We employ 1.2 million people directly, but we are also 7% of the country's workforce within restaurants, which is insane to think about. So on your own, I will post this PowerPoint, go through some of this stuff and take a look. I also love this idea where 1 in 5 young people between the ages of 15 and 24 are employed in the restaurant industry. We employ more international and young men, but specifically women, than any other industry. In Canada, food service and drinking place sales in thousands of dollars. So this shows you some of the amount of money that's coming in. Really what I'd like to pull from this slide is the difference between full service restaurants and limited service eating places. Now, limited service eating places are fast food. It's quick service. Full service restaurants are your sit down, regular restaurants, I call them. And that would be your Montanas and Eastside Marios and Jack Astor's and the Keg and places like that. You'll see with the dollar amount over the years that limited service restaurants have now outpaced sit down. So more people are eating quick, fast, less expensive, but worse for you food. And that's a sign of the times. People are maybe tight on money, but also very tight on time. So that's what happens often. Next thing, this is just a graph here showing the 2017 operating ratios. It kind of says where the costs go and how much money is kept. So we have full service, quick service, caterers, and drinking places. Caterers performing the best. And the costs are, anything in the red is the cost of sales, so the cost of the food and beverage. The black or blue is the salaries and wages, and then the gray is other expenses, which include your rents and leases, your equipment, your hydro and water, and all of the utilities. So you're looking here at, on average, 4.3%. So we keep 4.3% of our money. That's not a very big margin. That's why it's so tough in this industry. So like Blue Mountain, if you're able to decrease your cost by 7, now you're up to 11.3%. It's fantastic. So this gives you an idea of the tight margins, and something like a COVID-19 where you're closed down for a few months can erase any of this money here for you. All of this material that I've been pulling from, and these graphs and charts are all located in Blackboard as well. It's located under the research, readings, and other useful information if you want more stuff to read. Next thing I'm going to talk about is a commercial operation. So what is a commercial operation? So there's commercial and non-commercial, and commercial is that their purpose is to maximize profits through the sale of food and beverage. That is how they make money. And we break them down in many different ways. They can be independent, which is the majority of them, or a chain or franchise, which is mostly what you have heard of. So that's your Domino's and McDonald's and your Keg and your Moxies and Milestones. It varies greatly in concept. It can be casual, it can be family, quick service, indoor, outdoor. It's pretty broad as far as what they offer. A couple things that we do want to talk about, because we are in hotel resort and accommodations is really important, is the impact of food and beverage on lodging facilities. So many of you at a co-op in a lodging facility, hotel or resort, and how much money is actually made there by food. So sometimes there's a lobby bar. There might be a restaurant on site. There's banquet and event facilities. There could be room service. On top of that, they could have bottles of water or a mini bar in the actual room itself. You can be open to the local community, so you might not even have people staying there, but just coming in that live close by to use your restaurant as well. So food and beverage is what we call the biggest multiplier in the accommodation industry, and a multiplier is the different ways in which that we can make money off our guest. And the whole idea of this is, you have your customer, they come in and get a hotel room, but they also need to eat. They might want to shop. They might want some attractions or activities. And how do you keep as much money from that customer in the hotel? That's what really good general managers and food and beverage managers in accommodation facilities do. They figure out how to keep as much money from the customer inside the hotel, so they're not going out of it to go somewhere else. And if they are going out of it, how do I partner with that company? Let's say they're going to a local zoo. How do I partner with that zoo so I keep some of that money as well? So commercial operations, there are the independent chains and franchises, but there's also bars and taverns and caterers and banquets. These, although they only represent 4% and 7% of total Canadian share, there's a lot of money to be made here. And just so you know, bars and taverns, or anything that's considered a drinking establishment, are places that predominantly make their money only off the sale of alcohol. So pubs like a Donnelly's in Barrie would not generally be considered a bar or tavern or a drinking establishment, rather a restaurant. And then we have non-commercial operations. So when commercial operations, their only thing is that they need to make money off the sale of food and beverage. Non-commercial doesn't really care about making money off food and beverage, or that's not their priority anyways. Rather, they seek to minimize expenses of food and beverage while providing nutritious meals. What a really good example of this is Honda. So Honda builds cars. That's how they make money. So they have a cafeteria. They have many thousands of employees that are working there. So the idea is that I'm going to sell them food probably at a loss. I'm not making any money off this food. But the idea is that I'm going to keep my staff healthy, working hard, happy, and with enough nutrition that they can work a long shift and maybe overtime if I need them to. One huge section of non-commercial is healthcare food services. Now, again, I won't go through every different option that's available. We've broken it down by large urban hospitals and then more community-based, which usually do a little bit more of an outreach. But there are many, many options, and we're not even talking about all the long-term care homes that are out there as well. So read through this slide and familiarize yourself with all the different healthcare food options. I'm going to go by this slide right now. Next one is business and industry. So exactly what I talked about with Honda. What kind of food operations are in some non-commercial? And it could be as simple as having a vending service in some of the smaller manufacturing. But then some places have gourmet dining facilities, employee meal programs, or if you're small enough and you can't afford the space, maybe they call in mobile catering trucks or street vendors and have them come out of your property a few times a day. But it is important to understand that even if you run a business, people still need access to food, nutrition. Another big one is educational institutions. So schools, colleges, universities, you may recognize now being at Georgian that there's a lot of different food options. Not all of them are fantastic. I'm not a fan of a lot of them. I love my Bun on the Run and I love my GDR. But I don't like a lot of the whole pizza, Subway kind of food. But they are a big business. It's a lot of money. And especially when you get into the United States and a lot of the larger colleges and universities where there's 50, 60,000 people, it is a small city and it represents a small city's worth of food and beverage operations. And then there's ones that we, while they are large in itself, we don't talk about too much. But there's a lot of leisure and recreation operations, amusement parks. Think about how much Canada's Wonderland and how much food that they typically sell. Or the Rogers. Now, all these arenas are empty as it is right now. But when they do fill up and people will have an appetite to be going out to these places, there will be a lot of sales in food and beverage. Same with transportation companies, airplanes, trains, and ships. And then, of course, other operations, which are just as big, specifically when you think about prisons and military bases. Now, Canada might not have the biggest military or prison population, but our neighbor to the south sure does. And we still need to supply them with food as well. So at the very least, this should be opening your eyes to how many different opportunities there are for you with some great food and beverage experience and education. You can find yourself in many different jobs around the world, as well as locally. When it comes to commercial operations, so these are the ones that are trying to make They are typically broken down into three different sections: independents, chains, and franchises. First one we'll go through briefly is just independents. So independents actually make up like 65% of all the restaurants out there. Great advantages is that local business is fairly easy to attain, smaller amounts of capital or money in the beginning, and you have the ability to do whatever you want. The success rate is not very good as well, and the menus, if you have a couple different locations, can differ, and the operating procedures may lack some consistency. So when it comes to chains, so a chain is owned by one company and is run by one company. So Jack Astor's, as an example, is a chain. They don't franchise. They don't allow people to come in and purchase them and run them the way they want. So this is a chain restaurant, and they have everything really buttoned down. So the same menu, they purchase the supplies and equipment cooperatively. Standard operating procedures. So doesn't matter what Jack Astor's, the host is going to answer the phone and say the same thing, and the server has the same steps of service. People love consistency. So if you have those same steps of service all the way through, you're going to have people always coming back. Great thing is that the owners are the parent company, and they have ready access to cash and credit. So during, as an example, COVID-19, and we'll see a lot of restaurants that fail, you won't see really any chain restaurants fail because they have the ability and the assets to withstand 6, 8, 12 months of not making any money and still be there. Now, some of the disadvantages are that they do have a very bureaucratic way of running. So if you're running that restaurant, you can't really change what's going on. And if you are trying to change something, it must go through a lot of different people before you get approval. So that's a disadvantage. And it's also run by management, not owners. And the reason that's a disadvantage is because when you're the owner, you're not worried about how many hours you worked. You're not worried about if you're not getting paid enough. It's your place. You work hard and you watch everything. Run by management, you might check out, or you might put in the bare minimum, or your people might. And then there's a franchise. So a franchise is really quite interesting because almost anyone, if you have the resources, can buy a franchise of a company. And often they don't have the experience to do so. So what franchises do is that they sell you the rights to sell pizza under the Domino's flag. So they'll give you some startup assistance. Your royalty fees are based on revenue. So you have to pay the franchisor money, part of your revenue. But a good thing is, if you don't make a lot of money, you don't pay a lot of money. But when you do make a lot of money, you pay a lot of money. So it's usually a percentage of your revenue. They give you a lot of sponsored training and materials. You have great advertising already. You do help pay for it. But if you're working at Bob's Steakhouse or the Keg Steakhouse, one of those has a lot more marketing and social media presence out there already. You have lower costs due to volume purchasing. So it's like the Costco recipe where if I need to purchase one deep fryer, it's going to cost me $500. But if I want to purchase 10 deep fryers, maybe I'll get all of them for $400 each. And they also have very tested operating procedures. They know what works. And name recognition will really help you getting staff. Again, people want to work for the Keg Steakhouse and Bar because there's 100 locations all across Canada, United States, versus Bob's Steakhouse where there's only one and there's no corporate head office and you can never move up. A couple of disadvantages. So as a franchisee, the contracts favors the franchisor. So regardless if you don't have money or do have money, they will take your money. So you always have to pay them. They can come out with big brand changes. So Tim Hortons, as an example, came out with a brand change not too long ago. And every Tim Hortons is now need to pay for new labeling, new brand icons, new business cards, change their seating. And this is at the cost to the franchisee. So nothing the franchisor. So they can just come out one day and say, hey, we changed what our logo looks like. You need to take that big logo off the wall and change it. And it could cost you tens of thousands of dollars. These are some of the franchises that have the worst failure rate. So you might even see a few of these and remember them. UPS, maybe not anymore with the deliveries being as big of part of our world now. But Curves was a gym for women. Quiznos, Cold Stone Creamery. You might have seen these. They were also inside Tim Hortons. Pita Pit has a 51% failure rate, which is crazy. Blockbuster Video, we all saw that coming. And then Wings and Things had 94% failure rate. And there used to be one in Barrie, downtown on Mulcaster and Dunlop. And believe it or not, it failed. Few more things I want to go through franchise, and then I'll kind of leave you to go through the rest on your own. If you want to get into a franchise, and it is a very viable business and career for people, there's different ways that we look at it. So the very first one is the single unit franchise. So that's always how people start. It's them purchasing a single unit, and that's called a McDonald's. So you get your first McDonald's, you use their capital to develop the business, or use your own, capital to develop the business, and you pay the marketing fees for them. And the franchise fees, the royalties. Multi is usually granted to you if you are successful at one. So most times, as an example, Pet Values, right? It's a pet store. They only offer their franchisees to current franchise owners of another location. They have the first right to say, yes, I want to buy another one, or no, thank you, I don't want to do that. Then it can go to someone who maybe has never owned a franchise before. So they're granted first rights. And typically, once, you have a couple of these multiple franchises, you no longer are your owner and operator of one single store. You become kind of like a regional manager, and you manage your 3 or 4 properties, and then you hire general managers to run individual stores. You still pay your franchisees and marketing fees, and it's a bit of a change. And the last one, and it's where it'd be fantastic to be for many of you, is a master franchisee. So St. Louis, it's a wing place. There's one guy that lives in Barrie who owns the master franchisee, development franchisee license. And basically, anywhere in Simcoe County, if a new St. Louis is going to be open, they have to ask him if he wants to be the guy who opens it. So he has the right to first refusal. If he doesn't want to, he can sub-franchise it to a third party. So basically, we're adding another layer so that the franchisor, the master franchisee, and then the franchisee. So basically what happens is that he gets a share of those profits and royalties. So if it was 5% royalty before, now it's 6%. The company gets their 5 still, and he takes 1%. But he also has a job, so he also is trying to control, and he has to help support the site selection, the organization of the construction, operational support, and focus on the different markets and opportunities. And that's where kind of the franchisee level ends. That's as big as you can get. Now, a couple examples of franchises. So KFC, I think we've all had some KFC, although I prefer Popeyes. You would need a cash investment of $750,000, as well as a franchise fee of $45,000. Now, the cash investment is your money that's going into the actual build. The $45,000 they just take. The company just takes it and says, thank you very much. You now have the ability to open a KFC, or the permission to open a KFC. Furthermore, you'll pay 5% of your gross revenue and 5% of your gross revenue for advertising. So 10% of all of the money you make, you pay off. When we're looking at those figures from before, saying where all the money comes from, we're making 4, 5, 6, 7%. Here they're asking for 10%. This is why franchises can be difficult. There's a lot of different examples in here. The Keg at Tim Hortons, New York Fries. Tim Hortons, you need $500,000 and 50% of your franchise fee, and you pay a 6% royalty and a 4% for advertising. And you have to have a net worth of $1.5 million. So it gives you an idea of where all this money is coming from. You'll need a lot. And the last one is contract management. So the only thing I really want to talk about contract management is sometimes there is a situation where I'm a Honda, as an example. I'm the Honda plant. And I can hire my own food people and have them come in and create a wonderful cafeteria and feed all of my workers. Or maybe I don't want the responsibility. I build cars. I don't build meals and serve food. That's not my expertise. So I'll hire a company to do it for me. That's what most of the colleges and universities do as well. So advantages, large management company, they'll come in, they'll solve the problem for you. They get better deals. They're more efficient. And the food service is operated by the experts, which is great. Now, a couple of the negative things is that the management company has the control. So if they have a bad product, this can affect your public image, and you have no real control over that. And there's a dislike of profit-making businesses operating healthcare, education, and non-commercial. And I agree. In the school, we should look at it as the same way, where we are trying to educate students, not make money off selling them pizza. So we should offer a really subsidized food program so we can all eat and be healthy and be ready to learn. Management company may also decrease the food and beverage quality. And you might not have a lot of control over that. And eventually the institution becomes dependent on it. So let's say Honda for the last 20 years has hired Compass Group, which is one of those big companies, to manage their food. They haven't done it in 20 years, and they are so far out of their expertise that if they got rid of them, they wouldn't know how to solve the problem themselves. So you get dependent, and even though it maybe isn't working great for you, you don't want to get rid of them because the impact it'll have. Okay. And then here is a slide about Compass Group. I've worked for Compass Group before. They are huge. They have over 500,000 employees around the world. This is current job postings. If you ever want to go to this link, current job postings, and this gives you just a little bit of information about it. I'm going to leave you here. So there's about another 20 or 30 slides or so. This is a video on Friday Harbor Resort that I want you to watch and just kind of go through it. And then when you're done, follow through with the PowerPoint, and it just has a lot of really cool information about how food service shaped the world. Another 10 or 20 slides. Now all this material going from here and on can be tested upon, although the majority of it is, if anything, maybe a multiple choice question or two, not heavy material, more just good to know material. So continue through this and read up on the PowerPoints and use your in-class notes. And I will see you in one of our meetings. Thank you so much. Money. We said that they are